Good evening, and a very warm welcome to the 20th episode of Season 1 of Shiv Nadar Foundation Conversations. My name is Anubha from the Shiv Nadar University. As the world faces unprecedented challenges today with the COVID pandemic, majority of us are dealing with something that we've probably never faced in our life, which is limited or no mobility at all. Therefore, the Shiv Nadar Foundation has created conversations as a platform to bring to everybody inspiring stories of leaders from across various fields. In this series, we have brought to you Nobel laureate, award winning author, iconic business executives, eminent sports personalities, and renowned artists. We have so far hosted many guests, and their sessions have been seen by over 17 million times. We hope that these conversations inspire you and uplift your spirits in your time of isolation. Today, I'm particularly happy to host and welcome Malini Agarwal. Malini is the founder and creative director of MissMalini Entertainment, India's leading media lifestyle brand. She is one of the pioneers in Indian lifestyle blogging space, starting in 2008 when lifestyle blogging was an unheard of term. She has received numerous awards and accolades over the years, such as the ET Women Ahead, the Women's Super Achiever Award by Femina, Fortune India's 40 Under 40, and GQ's 50 Most Influential Young Indians. With that, a very warm welcome to Malini.
Hi, thank you so much for that introduction. It's so nice to be here.
It's so very nice to talk to you, Malini, today. How are you doing in these crazy times?
I'm good. I've actually gotten a little bit used to it. And luckily, my world is quite virtual. So I've been managing to do all my work.
Of course. So, Malini, today your audience, besides the world, are primarily students from the Shivnada School, Shivnada University, and of course the foundation, our faculty, our students, our alumni who are spread all over the world. So, I'm going to take a deep dive right in your childhood. You described yourself as a diplobrat, grown up as a diplomat's daughter, traveling the world, living in places from Somalia to Lebanon to Ivory Coast to Germany to Greece to Bulgaria. Take us through some of the exciting parts of your growing up years and the things that they have taught you.
Awesome. I'm first going to say a couple of hellos. Hi, Gaurav. Hi, Vandana, Sadhna, Basharat, Gopal, Gaurav, Vaibhav, Rahul, Meeta, everyone who sent in messages, and so sweet of everyone to watch. So my growing up years were pretty amazing. I think looking back, I kind of asked for a better education by, just travel. I feel is such a great way for you to sort of learn so much. So I think some of my most amazing memories are actually being in Greece when I was 9 years old. And I remember for me, it was all about the playground rather than, the beaches and all of that. But I remember loving the Acropolis. I was in Lebanon actually during the war in '86. So we used to sleep in the basement while there would be like bullet shells coming through our windows. And I remember I was very young. So the only memory I have is we used to make this 10,000 piece puzzle together on the balcony. And one day a shell exploded near our house. So the whole puzzle went up in smithereens. And I remember that's what I was more upset about because I didn't really understand the concept of war at that time. And I was in high school in Ivory Coast, which is in West Africa, in Abidjan. And it was the most amazing experience. So I think what's amazing, what happens when you travel so much, you learn so much. Like my best friend was Korean. I had another really good friend from Zimbabwe. So you actually learn so many things. You learn about other cultures. I'm pretty sure everything that I am today is because of that experience. And that's also partly why I even do what I do, because I wanted to sort of capture the essence of India for people to see outside of India. Because growing up, a lot of people would ask me if I go to school on an elephant. And I said that would be amazing, but no. Um,
Okay.
and similarly, a lot of people don't understand, what the culture is like in terms of how there's so much enterprise, right? People watch Slumdog Millionaire or they watch Discovery Channel and they don't really necessarily understand how enterprising young Indians are. Like the audience that's watching today, they all have great hopes and aspirations. They're going to do great things, as soon as this lockdown is over, I'm sure. So I think that's been quite the big learning of it. And I would not change a thing. It was an incredible experience.
Wow, wow. maybe that is how you learn how to juggle so many, so many roles. You started your own company, an entrepreneur. You've launched the biggest media entertainment company, Miss Malini Entertainment. You've been a digital influencer. You still are a TV host, best-selling author, heading digital content for Channel V, writing your own blog, which of course was your biggest passion, radio show. Which is the avatar you enjoyed the most, and did your upbringing, help you, navigate all of them?
Great question. So I actually always say that radio was my first love and blogging my marriage. So I always loved radio. I love the concept of theater of the mind. And this is why they always tell you, no movie will be as good as the book, because the images that you can conjure up in your mind will always surpass what somebody else describes for you. And I love that experience on the radio. I love that you can broadcast to millions of people, but everyone is still having a very personal experience, because they're picturing you, which is why everybody thinks their favorite RJ is so good looking, because they've imagined them in their mind. So I love that. But I actually took that same philosophy of broadcasting as if I was talking to one person to the blog. So I used to write my blogs as if I'm writing letters to one person and not really as a news piece. So all of that's kind of traveled on with me. I started up my career as a backup dancer. I miss all the different things I did, but I also love getting to do new things. My ideal world would be where I can still, be a professional dancer, still do the radio show and run the blog. But I guess it's impossible to do everything.
Of course. And you are what you are, and you're such a successful entrepreneur because of the various experiences that you've had, I'm sure. Of course.
I'm pretty sure,
So,
yeah. I think so.
no, of course, of course. So, starting, when you started writing your celebrity column and you picked up the blog as your personal, passion, which you've now built up into this mammoth company, and you've come a long way in a pretty short span of time. Take us through the trials and challenges. And today, your success as a, as somebody who set up your own company.
Well, it's so funny. People always talk about overnight success. My overnight success took 10 years. So it's never quick. I guess the exciting thing was that we were carving a new path in a new industry that didn't exist. So we actually got to make a lot of our own rules and decide a lot of new things on our own. The challenge was trying to get people to understand the value of the digital world. Today, everybody knows every brand advertises online. But when I started in 2008, people didn't really know what to make of the digital landscape. They didn't really understand how to use it, especially not for brands. So that was a big journey of trying to explain that to people. And second was finding good talent to work with, because again, nobody has experience in that when we started out. So you have to help people unlearn a certain style of writing. They have to learn how to microblog for social media. They have to be quite savvy. So you're actually trying to create content by an audience for the same audience that consumes it. So I think that's really been a little bit of the challenge. I think aside from that, every entrepreneur's challenge, from raising money to making hitting your targets, to all these various things, basically.
Okay. And of course, India was a pretty like a small infant during the time when when you started the digital journey, right? And so there would have been some very very unique challenges. The fact that you chose the digital medium, you wanted to become a digital influencer, which is such a buzzword there. But at that time, it was a very very nascent stage, and you've
Yeah.
seen the ecosystem evolve over the last decade or two. So, what do you feel about that?
About what? Sorry, I
Specifically,
didn't.
the digital ecosystem and how that has changed over the last 10 years. And you started when it was really at a very nascent stage.
Yeah. I think it's been an incredible evolution. I think that it's amazing how many young people have found work and found successful businesses. You hear of all these amazing stories where somebody used to work for 50 rupees a day at Hirapanna and now is a huge influencer. So it's incredible that it's been a real equalizer. It's really gotten rid of any concept of nepotism, because anyone can become an influencer if they have the talent. And I think that's what's really incredible, that it's such a great way for anyone to express themselves. And I saw it myself in my office. There would be girls who'd come and join, and they were saying how they're going to have to get married in a few years, but then when their family saw them bringing home a paycheck, they didn't force them anymore. And they would never have imagined not being a doctor, lawyer, engineer, secretary, and still getting to do that. So I've seen a lot of evolution. I think there's been a couple of things that have changed. In my time, there wasn't as much competition, there wasn't as much saturation in the market. Now it's very difficult to break in because there's so much content, so many influencers online. Having said that, there's a lot more tools for them. There's an ecosystem set up. You can join various agencies that will represent you. So all of that's in place. So I've seen a great evolution. I think that we're very proud to have been part of, carving that industry in a sense, I guess. Um, but it's been incredible to see. I'm very curious to see where it goes next. I really feel that the next step from this will be from individual influencer to community, because more and more people want to be part of a community. And now, like if you've seen with the coronavirus, we've been sort of speed tracked and forced into a future where we're so much more virtual than we ever expected to be so soon. We always talk about the future, and I think we always thought the future will have flying cars, but it's the future where we're already in it. And only now, when everything is happening virtually, is it becoming so evident to us that we are in the future.
In one of your interviews, I'd read that you were somewhat of a geek also. Did that help you get into this world? I found that very
Absolutely.
intriguing.
I think geeks run the world today. All the people who feel weird about being the dorky one in class. I was the one. I had these gold glasses with a gold rim on top. Would always wear my hair in a braid. Uh, could never
Okay.
find a
Wow.
boyfriend. I was all those things, and I think it's been great actually. I spent a lot of time learning a lot of things. I'm sure I had a lot of high school and teenage angst as a result. But I think being a geek is a great thing in today's day and age. You should be a geek to be able to learn so many skills. I keep telling people now, look at today's generation where we're stuck at home. You need to have multiple skills. You need to be able to adapt. That today, if for instance you have a job that requires you to be out in the open, what can you learn that you can still do and you're not jobless in such a scenario? So geeks are good.
Great. They're absolutely great. I love them. So tell us a little bit about your business model. Help us understand that. What kind of, for example, revenue makes, and how do you plan new product launches? How do you plan the content part of it? Give us an insight into that.
Sure. So there's a couple of different pieces to it. So a lot of people think that all we do is a blog, which is not true for many years now. So you have the blog, which I guess you can call the mothership. We have various social media platforms. We also have an in-house ad agency called Agent M Creative, where we make our own ad films. We have Ignite, which is a social media influencer platform where we have onboarded various influencers and help them get work. So if there's any influencers who are looking for help, who don't know how to approach brands, who don't know how to execute a campaign, you can come to us because we also want to give back to the community. And we also have a full-fledged production house. So we done 5 seasons of television. We did 2 shows with TLC, with VH1, with Zoom. We're going to be doing something with Voot now. So all of these things are revenue generating. And then we've done large ad agency campaigns for people like Pepper Fry, for Bosch, where we've actually made all their assets, from their TV commercial to their digital campaign. And across multimedia, brands will come and look for a 360 solution. So they might want a social media campaign, they might want an in-person interview, they might want influencers involved in it. So we basically create the entire package for people as brands. And what's happening is that people right now are online and there's too much information. So if you go looking for a pair of black shorts, if you Google black shorts, you'll get way too many answers. This way, if you have a virtual BFF who's going to help curate your choices for you, that's kind of what we do. And we have a very strong women's community called Malini's Girl Tribe, where there's a lot of information. It's a great place for data. There's a great intersection of women who talk, and women are actually probably the biggest decision makers for most purchases in the house. So we look at a lot of these different things, and that's where the revenue comes from.
Okay. I'll come back to the girl tribe bit in a bit. That's something which is
Sure.
very, very close to everybody. But before that, the space which you're operating is extremely competitive. And how do you differentiate yourself? Whilst we know because we see your work, but how do you manage to stay ahead of the competition all the time? There's so much which your company has to offer.
It's innovation. I think the key is to keep adapting to new things. So we always jump on a new platform when it comes along. We look at new formats. So, for example, during coronavirus, we're like, what can we do? We can't do our physical events. So we've been having virtual happy hours. So we did, with the Girl Tribe, we did a fun session with Arjun Kapoor. And today we have one with Rakuldeep, Raghupreet, who's going to be doing one with us. So we keep doing new adaptive things. And I think the fact that we started digital and then went into terrestrial television is kind of an interesting narrative for us. So it's really about that. And I think our tone, especially when it comes to entertainment content, has always been very positive. We always make it a point to keep this one rule in mind, that I will only ever write what I can say to your face.
Mali, my next question, but before that, I just can't stop myself from saying it. You mentioned yourself as social media Jedi once, right?
Yeah.
So I want, I found that so endearing. So from taking a cue from that, suppose a young Malini or a young person, listening to you today, a student wants to, take up this journey like you did. What are some of the specific skills you would advise them to pick up? What are the things that they can do now which will help them run their own organizations, especially in the digital space?
I think the most important thing is to be authentic and understand what it is you want to represent in the digital space. So figure out, are you doing this as a hobby? Are you trying to sell a product? Are you selling a lifestyle? Are you selling an emotion? Figure out what that is first and then craft your message accordingly. Of course, there's various hygiene, knowing what hashtags to use, knowing what time of day to post, following your analytics, but that's something that pretty much anyone can do. The secret sauce is really in figuring out what is your identity, because a lot of times people think of the social media landscape as, okay, this technical robotic thing, and they stop being themselves. And that's so true for brands as well. And people like to connect online in a more human way. Ironically enough, we've gone on social media to be social more than we even are in real life. But the
Right.
experience a lot of times that we're having is not very human. It doesn't feel like I'm talking to a real person. So it's just, if every time you do something online, apply this filter. Would I do the same thing in real life? So, for example, if you're online and you're posting about your brand and you just post about yourself and you never interact and you never do it, it's the equivalent of going to somebody's party, putting up pictures of yourself and leaving without talking to anyone else. It's the same as going out and handing out your business card, but not picking up the phone when someone calls. So keep these things in mind and apply
Okay.
the fact that it might be a virtual reality, but behave the same way, because you'll get better traction from that.
Okay, that's quite a good tip. So, of course, what you've achieved so far, and the fact that you are, right at the top of your game, and it must be, the crown must be pretty, it's pretty heavy. It's a lot of responsibility also on, what you have to say and what you write. It's taken so seriously by followers. What do you feel about that, and what are your views on that?
I think the good thing for us is that we've always been pretty positive. So I don't really worry about things that I say, because I say what I really feel. And I think people have been very generous about understanding that. So I was doing a live earlier today and I was being honest that I have crippling stage fright. I find it terrifying to talk in front of crowds of people. It takes me many, many weeks of practice in front of a mirror with much blood, sweat, and tears to talk alone on stage. I can do it when I'm talking to you, I'm comfortable, but alone I can't. So there's various things, and I think the great thing is that people are quite empathetic and they're quite humane. So if you log on and say, I'm not feeling so great today, or I made a mistake, they will empathize. So I don't feel that it's a difficult experience. I don't feel the crown is very heavy, because I don't really think of it as a crown. I think that I've learned so much that I'm finally, people always say, oh, I'm getting older, but I'm 43 and I feel more comfortable in my skin today than I ever did in my 20s or 30s.
Wow. Wow. I think that's a very important thing, to be able to be confident in your own skin. But on the same connected point, social media is infamous for online bullying and trolling, and especially when you're talking to young viewers right now, what would be your advice to the younger people who are starting their journey, or actually they're spending a lot of time on social media, and what would be your advice to them?
So I literally just started this campaign called Ignore No More, because I feel so strongly that this has to end. Especially now we're all doing so many more lives, we're having so many more conversations. We can see during a live the awful things people are saying, and they're saying them from their real accounts. They're not even scared anymore. And we've all been told, just ignore it, don't bother, muh mat lago, all of that. But I think that's the mistake. I think that we have created an environment where it's okay for trash talk. And I worry for the next generation, my children, whether they're going to behave in that way or be at the receiving end. So we've actually, I'm very lucky that we came across this guy called Shubham. He's a cyber cop and introduced us to a whole world of possibilities. I think a lot of people don't even know there are legal repercussions. These are all cyber crimes. Sending someone obscene messages, even stalking them or repeatedly harassing them. You can file a complaint. You can go to my Instagram and get all the details there, and you can actually send them away to jail. If they're minors, you can also inform their parents, and they will definitely get serious, I'm sure, repercussions from their family. And if they repeat it, you can send them to jail. It's very important that we report this stuff. And that's the only way we're going to clean up the environment. We always talk about, I don't like what's on social media. We have to fix it. One, with what you put on it. Two, with doing something when you see this stuff. And, guys always also ask, but what can we do? You can help. If a friend of yours says, I'm getting creepy DMs, help her screenshot and collect the information and email the cyber cell. Help her put that together so that she doesn't have to read them all over again. These are simple things to do. The process is really simple. You save the name of the person who's stalking you or sending you these messages, screenshot the messages, email them to this email address you'll find on my Instagram, and you can track everything. And the amazing thing is that these people can be tracked down from the Instagram nodal office. Their phone numbers are found, they are called, and they are reprimanded. And I promise you, when the police calls one of these guys, he is not going to do this again. So I really think it's time, and that's why the campaign's called "Ignore No More." Don't listen the next time when someone says just ignore it. Don't ignore it.
I can make out how passionate you are about that. Malini, I'm going to take up one or two of our audience questions. They are now coming in a lot.
Sure.
So Payal Gupta is asking you, you changed the way advertising works for the digital space. What was the first challenge and your achievement too?
Well, thank you so much, Paul, for that question. I think the first challenge was understanding the digital space and advertising and what the things are that I can do. I'm sure I've made mistakes where maybe it looked too branded. And, initially the biggest struggle I had is that people didn't understand why, as a blogger, I was promoting a product. Now it's like everyone does it, right? But at that time, it didn't sit well with people. So they were like, how can you do that? And I was trying to explain that, look, I'm running a business. I have salaries to pay. Just like in a magazine, you see ads, it's the same thing. But it took a while for people to get there. So I think that was probably the biggest challenge. And I guess the biggest achievement is getting people to see that you don't need to prey on people's insecurities to sell them something. You don't have to body shame them. You don't have to tell them they're not fair enough or tall enough. You can celebrate them. So we always try to craft the messaging for a brand in a way that makes people feel good about themselves.
So before I take on my questions, I'll have one more audience question. Tanmay Sharma is asking, how much difficult to start a new startup in the digital media space now compared to when you started?
Tanmay, thank you for your question. I think it's harder for sure because there's so many people doing it. But having said that, if you come up with a unique proposition, you could do great. I mean, look at the opportunities right now, right? Look at your things like House Party, we're blowing up, Zoom calls. All these guys are doing amazing. I heard the other day, I was listening to a podcast where puzzle companies are doing really well. So online puzzles because people are at home with nothing to do. So it's a lot about creating innovation, identifying a need and creating a product around it. So if you can come up with a startup idea that's going to solve a problem, especially during the coronavirus, you will be very, very successful. So think about the need and then come up with your product.
So while this is an anonymous question, Malini, but still it's a nice question. Must be a student. Did you face resistance from your family in starting the blog? Did they support you when you started it?
Yeah, luckily, I'll tell you a funny story. Luckily, my parents have never given me any grief. They didn't mind when I was a professional dancer. They didn't mind when I did radio. Whatever they said is whatever you want to do, just do it well. Like work hard at it. Don't give up. And my mom has always been the cutest. She would always sit in the front row with a video camera filming me, whether I was doing a play or dancing. It's the sweetest thing. But she's 80 years old, okay? So when I told her I'm a blogger, she used to tell her friends that my daughter is an internet blocker because she didn't understand. So she was like, see, all of us get so much spam. So celebrities must be getting so much more spam. So Malini blocks it for them. And it was just the most hilarious definition. So they've never given me grief. I think it took them a while to understand what it is exactly.
Okay, okay. But what a cute story.
Yeah.
Moms are so special. Okay, coming to moms now, of course, and moms are also women. I know that women empowerment is so something so special for you, and you've spoken about sisterhood, especially, and how women can help other women rise up, and I found that so powerful. Tell us now about the Girl Tribe, Malini's Girl Tribe, and the work that you're doing to connect and empower women through this community.
Yeah, the Girl Tribe is really close to my heart. It's a community that I started on Facebook with 100 women. Now there's 43,000. And what I find fascinating is that this is a place where people can talk about literally everything and anything under the sun. I don't believe women's issues have to be like rape and menstruation only, right? It's travel, it's food, it's film, mental health, relationships, everything. And this is not a serious angry feminist group. It's a positive space for women to uplift each other. We've always been told that women have to tear each other down to succeed. That's not true. And I would love to create a group where men can join too, but right now, unfortunately, men and women don't play well together on the internet in India. But we have a group for men called Positive Masculinity as well. But the Girl Tribe is really a community to help empower women to do great things. So we have been featuring 100 women entrepreneurs who are starting their businesses, and we did a spotlight on them and showcase them. We give people an opportunity to interact with everyone. So on World Yoga Day, Malaika is doing a yoga class for us virtually. So we try to marry what we have in terms of our celebrity relationships and our resources with something that we can offer the Girl Tribe. And this is just I'll give you an example. We had a conversation that still stayed with me, is that there's a mom who posted saying that she found her 12-year-old daughter on her phone, and she was looking at porn. And when she spoke to her about it, her daughter was like, "I'm a bad girl, I'm so sorry." But she was very distressed that, what do I do, how do I deal with this? And it was amazing the advice she got from women saying, look, you don't need to embarrass your daughter. At this age, they want to know about sex, so tell her about the birds and the bees, explain what pornography is, because they're going to be exposed to it. And I was so amazed with how gently and so empathetically people explained what she should do for someone who was freaking out. But if she had posted the same question publicly on social media, you can just imagine the things people would have said. So I really think we're creating a space on the internet which is using social media the way it was meant to be used, to enable you to connect at such a huge scale. Today, so many women are stuck behind. All of us, we're alone, or some people are facing domestic violence, or some people are just lonely. Suddenly this opens the door to 43,000 women you can talk to any time of day. And I think it's amazing the way that people have connected there. That means that people can be good online. I believe they can.
Of course. And maybe you're creating that positive and safe environment for people to
Uh, I hope
just
so.
that your work with women and your work with creating what you've done and your journey across. I'm sure all of this is added to you being the huge personal brand that you are, and a lot of your work is about also creating a personal brand. Okay, it is in many ways reflecting you. And is that a big part of conscious effort which you have to do? Because if especially the girl tribe and all the issues which you brought, they must be resonating and they add to what you do. How does that work?
Yeah,
And
having a personal brand.
on tips on giving to young people on how to build own personal brand.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll be honest with you. It's difficult because sometimes you think I should separate my personal brand with my company because there has to be longevity, right? There's something called key man insurance, where what if I get hit by a bus, then what happens to the company? So I've separated the Miss Malini brand from Malini Agarwal, because the business, I don't run it day to day. That's run by a whole team. It's just a brand name like Elle or Vogue or anything. Miss Malini. But personal brand really helps, as you've seen with influencers. If you have a personal brand and following, getting your message out there for anything, whether it's a product or a service, makes it that much easier. So what I'm trying to do is build my personal brand in what I aspire to be, I guess, a young Oprah in a sense. She's my role model, and that's what I hope to build out of here in the digital landscape. um, so that
When
definitely helps. Sorry.
yeah, sorry, no, I was. Please complete.
Yeah, so I think for me it's really about trying to carve a niche where it doesn't exist. Like, we have our Amitabh Bachchans and our Chota Beams. We don't have a millennial role model, I guess, in the virtual space. You have a lot of influencers now, but I'm kind of like the, you know auntie of influencers now, technically, since I started in 2008. So I like a godmother of sorts, I guess. So I think that I really want to create an identity where people know me for this, for having made a change. I want to leave a legacy behind. I want to look back and say all these years that I spent playing on the internet meant something. And I feel that when I meet people from the girl tribe who say this person helped me or helped me get out of my depression or I made a best friend, that means so much to me. So building a personal brand, the key things are figuring out who you are. I went to Malaysia Social Media Week, and I learned something amazing. They said, figure out your one word bio. The way to do that is think about the movies you love, the friends you keep, the books you like to read, the topics you're interested in, and you'll find one thread, one common word between them. It could be adventure, excitement, or thrills, or love. And that's your one word bio. Then use that as a filter for everything you do. So, for instance, if mine is positivity or love, my filter always comes with that of anything I do. And that's how you build a personal brand.
And a lot of passion and empathy you reflect, Malini. Lot of that. You
Thank
know,
you.
this pandemic. Whilst you, of course, grew up at a time, and I was reading a story about you that you would go back home in the middle of the night, wear your pajamas, and take your laptop and start writing your blog. But in the digital acceleration has happened crazily because of this pandemic, and businesses and education institutions, of course, teachers like all of us, they're really having to cope up a lot and quickly learn a new view. And the way people are consuming content, for example, you must be seeing that day in day out the business to do. Where do you see this industry going, and how are you going to pivot on this, and what is going to be the next stage for you, you and the organization that you've built up?
So I think what's happening is interesting is that people don't know what's going to happen next yet. So they're preparing themselves for both scenarios. I think the movie industry has to come back in action, so they're going to find ways to start shooting. But as you're seeing, a lot of movies are releasing straight on OTT platforms. You're seeing, you're seeing a lot of that. Even top actors, actresses now, you see them in those shows, whether in Hollywood or in Bollywood. So there's going to be that, and you're going to see a lot more virtual content being created. So as net speeds get better and technology is better and they're enabling you to do things like live broadcasts and stuff, you're going to see a lot more shows like that. If you look at all the international talk show hosts, they're doing them from home, but they're full-fledged talk shows. I think in terms of our business, we're definitely going to adapt as well. We definitely have a lot of the pieces of the business that are physical on ground parts where you actually go and meet or do an interview or shoot something. But a lot of what we can do is virtual. And a large piece of what we're going to do is to build out the Girl Tribe app that enables you to do a lot of things. So what we want to do is be as valuable as your Uber, Zomato, Tinder, something that is your go-to for women. So we definitely want to focus on that. And I think that is interesting. You never know what happens next. I think technology has been so rapidly evolving in our time that things are going to be there. I was reading this thing and I was researching for my book. Think about the fact that Generation Alpha, the one after Z, are going to have jobs that do not yet exist. So that's kind of interesting.
Of course, of course. So maybe the next challenge for you would be what you talked about, Oprah for the millennials. Is that something which you're still very, very keen on? You
Absolutely.
talked about how to do that show. Okay, all right, great. So you've reached maybe a pinnacle. For many of us, you've reached the pinnacle. Professionally and creatively, you've achieved so much. What is that dream which now keeps you awake at night? What do you feel? That what is next for you
I
as
mean,
a person?
yeah, I think I'll be honest with you. I think for me as a person, a lot of people always feel, right, how do I feel personally satisfied about what I'm doing? Do enough people understand? I think that we all struggle with this, right? We all have FOMO when we look at our social media feeds. Somebody else has a better life. Somebody else has more followers. Somebody else has more likes. I struggle with that too. We all wake up and do that. I want to aspire to be someone who gives more than I need to get. So one of the things I do now is when I go online, I start feeling weird about some post not doing really well. I'll go to somebody else's feed and leave a comment or like it because it pays it forward. It adds some value to somebody else. I think for me, I want to definitely write more books. I want to create something with this Girl Tribe at a scale that it actually moves the needle and makes a difference. And I just want, I want people to leave my platforms feeling better than they did when they came.
Wow. That's a great goal to have. But it must be stressful. You run a 24/7 company, and it's a very very busy kind of work that you're doing, and it's all the hustle bustle of work, and added to it the pandemic. How do you devote time between yourself and your family? How do you unwind?
Well, I mean, my husband Nashad is also the CEO of the company, so we live, breathe, eat, walk, everything together. And my other business partner, Mike Melly, he's also like we're all one big family, right? So it's all very intertwined. I don't really detox from the internet as people suggest to do. I use the internet to detox. So I will go watch something positive or listen to a nice podcast or read Instagram feeds about affirmations or hang out in the girl tribe. So that's really what I do to sort of, detox and de-stress from it. I don't think of it as work-life balance. I think of it as work-life integration. I heard that from Wendy Clark, who's like a very big CEO in advertising, and I thought that was amazing.
Right. Everybody on these days is talking about what new skills, what new recipes, what new Netflix shows that they've done during the pandemic. Are you getting any time at all to do all of that?
Absolutely.
Dancing?
I binge a lot of shows. I just watch Fauda, and of course, everybody has watched Money Heist. I like
Right.
to watch documentaries, so I watched the one on Epstein. I was watching this amazing one, if you guys like basketball, on The Last Dance. So just like everything, I literally somebody recommended. So I started watching Jane the Virgin, which is pretty funny. So I do. I watch lots and lots of shows. There's one on Apple TV called Little America, which has great stories about immigrants from different places and their little true life stories. There's a great, very geeky one on Netflix now about spelling bees. How Indian kids are so good at spelling bees. It's so funny. So yeah, I binge a lot of shows.
Okay. You were great at spelling when you were a kid.
I was terrible at it.
Okay. Nobody can make that out with the way you write these days.
Yeah.
Right.
The great thing about Word documents, it checks your spelling for you.
Oh, of course. So I'll take up one or two more questions from the audience before I start the rapid fire section for you. So, okay. What are the various ways to monetize? This is an anonymous question. What are the various ways to monetize as a blogger for a newcomer?
So as a newcomer, it's probably a bit tricky because you have to get a certain following up, or you have to be very specialized. So you may not need a huge following, but you have to have a very major niche. So if you are a luxury travel blogger, for example, you can reach out to brands that want to get to that specific audience because they don't need such a large number. They need an audience that's very specific who would be willing to spend that kind of money. So figure out what your brand is going to be and what you're going to blog about. But remember, before you start to go out and try to make money off it, build your audience because it won't be an authentic audience if you start off trying to sell them something. So you need to figure out what is the content and the content balance. So always do 80% organic content and 20% paid.
Whilst in many ways I think you already answered, but Tiasha Banerjee is asking, what are the components of a successful blog?
Wow, there's so many. I think it's a combination of good and regular content. Quality is super important. Everything from how your pictures look to the videos to the embeds. I think if you're writing a blog, then writing skills are very important. You have to respect the audience to want to read something. If you've written something, spell check it, look through it multiple times. I think writing good blog titles is very important. Optimizing for SEO is very important. Using your social media to promote the blog is very important. So there's a lot of these different components that go into it. But the most important one is how authentic you are and how knowledgeable you are in what you're blogging about.
Okay, great. That's a great tip for Tiasha. Pooja Arora is asking, who is your inspiration and why?
I have lots of different inspirations. Like I said, Oprah, Ariana Huffington, everyone. I find so many amazing people. There's so many people that I've met in my office who work with me who are so inspiring. And I think one of the great inspirations I met is this 16-year-old girl who I met when I was doing my book tour in really small town. And she came up to me and she said, I want to be great. How can I be great? My mother tells me that only rich people or famous people get to be great. But what made them, so great? Like what is that about them? And she had such great insight. She was like, see, there's three kinds of people in the world. They're the people who don't think about being great. They don't care. They're scared. Then you have people who want to be great, but they're flying in a plane with a fuzzy windshield so they can't see windscreen. And the third are the ones that are built for greatness. And that's the kind of person I want to be. And she was 16. And I thought it was
Wow.
fantastic that people, have such great insight and aspirations. And so that was very inspiring to me.
Wow. Wow. And at 16.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So Priyanshi Yadav is asking you, ma'am, you were good at so many different areas. So were you not confused in selecting your dream?
Absolutely. It was very confused. That's why I did so many things. And I always tell people it's okay, do multiple jobs. So I used to work at MTV in the day, and I used to do my radio show at night, and I used to write the column in between. So for many, many times, I always had 2 or 3 different jobs going on. And then eventually I found something that kind of let me use the skills from everything. So maybe not dancing, but I get to go out and interact with a lot of people. But dancing teaches you teamwork. Radio, because I still do a lot of media, being in front of the camera, all those things. So do lots of things. No job you do will ever be bad time spent, because think about it, you when you go to college or school, you pay someone to teach you. Here they're paying you to learn, so it's actually a win-win situation.
Okay. So Gauri Kantinath is asking you, is there anything that you've always wanted to try but you've been too scared?
Yeah, I tried it, but I'm still scared. Scuba diving. And I was so petrified because I'm very claustrophobic. I was scuba diving. We had gone on a trip to Australia, and my hair got caught in the coral. So I was stuck, and the guy didn't know what to do. So he thought I couldn't breathe. So he took out my breathing pump, and I completely flipped out. So I don't know if I'll try it again, but maybe. Let's see.
Okay. Okay. So, Amit Kumar, Bab, how can you create an environment in which all men, women sit together on the same platform as equal respects for each other, especially in the rural areas?
I think it's going to take a while, and it's a task. I think it's all comes from education, and I have great hope that this younger generation, even the people in the rural areas who are younger, if you educate them and explain to them the value of equality, it's not just about what people wanting equal rights. It changes society. You have a lot more success, a wholesome, happier society. So I think it starts where with education for sure. So we obviously have to fix it at our privilege level, definitely, before we go looking to try to change other people. But education is key, whether it's sex education or gender, sensitivity, all of that is key.
And of course, it also begins with a young man like Amit Kumar asking this question. That means that there is an
Yeah,
interest to build that safe space.
absolutely, Amit. I think that's absolutely right. I think it's great that you're asking this question.
Okay. So I'll take one last question from the audience. You've been a TV host. Arun is asking you. You've been a TV host, a professional dancer, an author, blogger. Now you're running your own company. On the outside, it all looks very seamless with you leveraging your roots in the entertainment industry. Was it frictionless? How easy is it to write about celebrities? There's a lot of questions here. Make stories about them and still be friends with them. I guess it's a complex area that you're operating in.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think the thing is, for me, when I started off, maybe I was writing gossip, but I didn't really know them very well. So I didn't really come into contact with them. But slowly over time, I did. And then I realized the gossip I was writing used to make me feel weird about making contact with them because they might get mad. So we went more positive because I didn't want to be someone who felt awkward facing you. Because if I feel awkward facing you when I wrote something, then it's on me that why am I should be okay with what I've written. If I can write it, then I should be able to face you. And because of that, because we built that relationship and we decided to do more positive content and keep that rule in mind that we'd only write what we can say to people's faces, as a result, our relationship with celebrities also was much better. So although there might have been times where I've had to comment on something, especially when it came down to the Me Too movement and we called people out, but then you have to, take a stand at some point and be like, this is not acceptable. So we have had to do that. So it can be a little tricky sometimes, but I think all in all, we've been pretty good because our content is fairly positive.
Great. So with that, Malini, we are coming to the last segment, which is a rapid fire set of questions. Quick one or two word answers to some fun
Oh,
questions. All right. So what
yeah.
is the first thing you do in the morning?
I check Instagram.
Okay. Okay. And what is that? What is it that you will never trade anything for?
My phone.
Ah, wow. Okay. And I'm
My
sure it's going
that's
to
my
resonate with many people.
that's my office.
Who inspires you at a professional level?
My business partners, Mike Melly and Nashad, they are fantastic at what they do.
Okay. One advice you will give to 20-year-old Malini.
Uh, I'm going to tell her it all works out great. Don't worry so much.
Oh, true, true. The future told it all. The person whose style inspires you.
I really like people who, don't try to follow a trend at all. So, just like slightly off the beaten path. So, Aduna Akhtar's style is very cool. She's very chill. I like her sort of denim dungarees she wears sometimes.
Yeah, true, true. And your favorite celebrity interview.
So many. I think obviously, when you interview Shah Rukh Khan, it's hard to top that. But my favorite actually was Sushmita Sen. She was incredible. I was talking to her, and I was talking to her about adoption, and obviously, she adopted both her children, and she said the best thing I've ever heard about adoption, and she said it so simply. Because I was saying, a lot of people say you shouldn't adopt, tumhara khoon nahi hai, all those things, and she said, think about this: when you get married to someone, you choose to spend the rest of your life with a complete stranger, no blood relation, and people come and celebrate that. So then why can't you choose to have the same relationship with a child, which is even more so malleable? And I was like, that's brilliant. No one's ever put it like that. But it's so true.
Beautiful. Wow. What a powerful statement by Sushmita. So,
Yeah.
favorite activity when you're on a break?
I like to play pool. I'm a bit of a pool champion.
Oh, okay. So you're a geek, you're a social media Jedi, you also play pool. Wow, a lot of things. So great. With that, we've come to the end of an absolutely brilliant conversation. Malini, it's been such an honor to host you. You've got so much of stuff that you've done. It's been such an inspiring session for us. A lot of it's beautiful journey you had. We wish you all the very best. All the very best. And because my students will not at all forgive me if I don't say this, we would love to host you at the Shivnada University campus one day when things are good. We have a beautiful campus. You will love coming here, and our kids are absolutely fantastic, both at university, at the school, at the college. We look forward to hosting you.
I would absolutely love to come. And I just want to say a big thank you to all the students who watched. Please remember, be kind, be empathetic, and nice on social media. There are real people on the other side of this, as I can see all the people watching. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all the research you did about me to ask me these questions. That means a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
All the very best to you, Bala.
All right.
Grow bigger
Bye.
and even better. You retain that empathy.
It's very
Thank you
kind.
so much.
Thank you.
I
Bye.
want to so bye bye. I want to